Here we go. We're pulling up. What's up, bud?
Fancy. Look at this.
How you doing?
Oh, we got a studio.
Yeah, full studio in here.
How you doing, man?
Good, bud. Put this thing down for a second. How you doing?
Oh, good, man. How you doing?
Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a minute. I like the mullet. That thing is fire right there. This is
amazing, right? Every once in a while, I forget I have it, and people say, "Dude, that's an amazing mullet." I'm like, oh yeah, man. Thank you.
Looks good. Hey, welcome to Locals Only. I'm Eric Hale, and if you don't know me, I'm the guy that founded Local Magazine 14 years ago in my garage. It's been my job for all those years to tell you the coolest places to eat in all of Southern California, fun things to do so you have date nights that aren't boring, and we've talked to some really interesting people. Now we have a podcast, and we're lucky enough to call this Mercedes-Benz EQE all-electric sedan, courtesy of Fletcher Jones Motorcars in Newport Beach, our mobile podcast studio. So sit back, buckle up, and enjoy the conversation. Welcome to Locals Only. Today, we're driving through Huntington Beach on a little bit of a rainy day. Today's episode is a unique journey beyond the stage, as I'm joined by a great friend and an extraordinary talent in the rock world, Matt Sanders. He's more famously known as M Shadows, and he's the lead singer of Avenged Sevenfold. What brings us together today is something beyond chords and lyrics. We're here to explore a wide spectrum of Matt's interest that spark creativity and innovation off stage. From the cutting edge of virtual reality that's shaping new worlds to the latest tech marvels that capture his imagination, today's chat is all about the diverse and fascinating hobbies and passions that Matt pursues. So grab your favorite headphones and let's get ready to delve into the expansive and captivating interest of Matt Sanders. I was listening to some of your music on the way over, get inspired.
Stuff there, yeah.
Some old school. There was piano on that particular one that I was on, and then there was piano on your new album.
Yeah,
on one of them, and it seemed very similar. So I was just kind of like,
we've always used a lot of different instruments, a lot of playing around with orchestras and quartets and piano, and it's funny because people that are new to us, they're always like, "Oh, is that like a new thing?" It's like, no, we've been doing that since 1999.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Different radios. Yeah.
I think that's really what I want to get into you with, though, because we've had the pleasure of hanging out personally, playing some golf, and the conversation doesn't really turn to music when we talk. Yeah. It doesn't turn to, it does turn to golf, but just usually how bad we are and how much money I'm probably going to lose.
I swear I played better last week. And then,
we're equally as horrible at golf, but the conversation almost always turns to what I would like affectionately say is like nerding out. Mm-hmm. Like it is always you explaining NFTs to me at infinitum, me not getting it, but just going on and on about it, or talking about Bored Apes or talking about just technology in general. And I feel like, I don't want to talk too much here, but you've been like this, this amazing musical act, but I feel like on another planet, another time, that might not have been your calling. You're almost like a techie kind of nerd. Like you want to figure out like what's next and move the industry forward in that way. So maybe just expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think everyone has to kind of, figure out what gets them up in the morning, what excites them, and then you got to kind of follow it. And regardless if you are known for one thing at one point in time, or if you can do two things at once or three things at once, or maybe taking two things and trying to make the world better for the other thing that you do.
Right.
And so for me, I get up in the morning and I get annoyed at putting all this time into our art, which is like uncompromised. We don't have anyone in there. We're just doing, this sort of artistic expression or this kind of artistic explosion, which would be like our albums and the way we want to present ourselves live. But the confines of commerce and the way that the music industry has sort of evolved has taken all the power away from the musicians and sort of given it to the people that are building technology or own the companies or own the venues or own all the sort of drivers that allow people to get music into their hands, and basically all the power gets stripped from the artists. And my big thing is like being able to see some of these trends before they happen or kind of get on these things, you can hopefully in the future write a better sort of roadmap for artists if an artist can be on the forefront kind of writing the rules as these things happen. So for me, that's protocol network stuff, which is like blockchain. It is actually sitting in the meetings with people that make decisions in this industry. It's things like VR. You know, there was a time when music videos were looked down upon for the artists that did them. They were called sellouts for doing them. Then DVDs came out, Blu-rays, and now it's like commonplace to go watch a live show on YouTube.
Right.
Where that would have been called something completely sellout-ish back in the day. Now we have things like VR concerts, and we're starting to see the same backlash, when the reality is, when these headsets become sunglasses, or even further down the line, some sort of Neuralink, you know, straight to the mainframe, people are going to be enjoying these concerts and doing these sorts of things the same way they're enjoying Blu-rays or this or that, but they're going to be enjoying them through their headsets. And right now it would be the Apple Vision Pro or the Oculus 3. But as time goes on, you need artists to be in this space so that they can navigate what is right for the artist, and not necessarily the tech bro that made the technology and the guy that's going to hire the band and tell you what to do and then own all the data. Right. You want to be the one that sits there and kind of makes those decisions. And so that's my verbal stew of why, but it excites me. I get up and I'm excited. I'm not like, I don't wake up and like kind of groan at it. I love it.
You can hear your passion definitely when you talk about this. This is like something that you're passionate about. And I love that it's not like, I'm not going to say altruistic, but you're not just thinking about yourself. I feel like you have a desire to help others in so much as like other artists and how the industry is as a whole. And I know we've talked about this a little bit, but I think AI and these technologies like blockchain are going to shift power, maybe not just in this industry, but in a lot of industries where people have historically had the power. That power is going to be taken away from them because AI can do it better than their whole team of 200 people, or blockchain is a better and more capable way to transfer tickets between individuals, right? Or transfer funds.
Right.
So I think it's really interesting that you are on the forefront of that. Before we talk about kind of what you're doing and those virtual concerts that, you know, might get some backlash, is there any backlash from the industry, from those things that you're doing to be on the forefront of those? Because I know there have been artists in the past that went up against Ticketmaster and like Pearl Jam, and it didn't go too well, right? Like, do you feel nervous being at that spokesperson or the forefront of that?
The rubber's going to meet the road on a couple things very soon. I mean, maybe by even the time that this comes out. There are entities in place that have built these sort of corporate networks. And the way the corporate networks work is that they have closed databases, and they basically bring you in and they bring everybody in, and then they extract everything from you. They change the rules on you. They change. They have a royalty system. They can do basically anything they want, and they'll never tell you necessarily who your audience is because they believe it's their audience. Right. So you're working for them. You're an employee. Right. And so nothing you do or create is yours. You don't deserve any of that. No. Right. And so,
because they have the machine, you're just another cog in the machine.
And they brought you in, and there's a community there, and they have a bunch of things that are very easy for like a user to get, right? So let's take Spotify, for example. Okay. Spotify has a great system for, the user, right? They pay $9.99 a month or $14.99, whatever it is at this point, and they get all the music that's ever been created for virtually nothing. Right. Right. Now, on the other end, the artist has nowhere else to have their music listened to. You're not going to go on a road trip and go to every individual artist's, website to pull up their latest record and stream it from there. It's just not going to happen. It's kind of like when you put a AAA movie out, but it's not on Netflix and it's not in the theaters, who actually goes and sees it? The way the consumerism is in America, we want, ease of use. So they have ease of use for the consumer. But what they don't do is, I don't know the last time I saw someone wear a Spotify shirt around. Yeah. I've seen Metallica shirts and Avenged Sevenfold shirts and Taylor Swift shirts. But what they don't do is they don't tell you who's listening to your music. They don't let you reach out to them. Right. They don't let you perhaps upsell them things. So you can't build a community. You can't sell them your merchandise. You can't talk to them. Right. And they've basically sold the company in return for catalog to the labels. And so now you have all these old record label deals that most people are locked into, getting a royalty on that percentage that Spotify pays you. So say Spotify, for purposes of like easy discussion, 0.003 cents a play. Most bands are getting about 24 cents on the dollar, right? So it's not Spotify really the payment, it's more the labels and having bad deals. So
you're saying out of that money, the label's still getting a nice chunk from 75%
Spotify. Of it at least. And then you get to pay off your...
So everybody's winning, right? The tech guy that built Spotify, the investors that are into Spotify,
right.
the labels, the producers, the venues, everybody gets a nice chunk. Ticketmaster, everybody gets something, but the artist...
So let's extrapolate that across industry, and every t-shirt you sell, every record you sell. So there's all these things in place. Now, I do want to make a side note here that the most artist-friendly company out of everyone we've worked out of is actually Ticketmaster.
Really?
Ticketmaster.
So what I said was maybe old news, because I remember there was a big battle years ago.
Well, it's because Ticketmaster takes the brunt for the artist setting the ticket price, the promoter deciding if there's a huge queue, they'll move the dynamic pricing up.
Right.
Artists opt into platinum tickets, artists use it. And I've said this since day one, like, we opt into things because we do want to optimize when we go on tour. You want to have something that's reasonable, but you also want to be where the market's at.
Right.
In terms of what is it going to cost to get 5 guys here with your whole crew and everyone you're paying and this and that. Ticketmaster basically stands there and pretends that they're the ones doing it, but really it's the artist.
It's the art. So they're just they get beat up on their behalf.
So something that Ticketmaster did, if we want to get into the blockchain thing, the cool thing about blockchains is that they're protocol network, right? They're open source. They're things where the rules can never be changed on you. If you're using something like Ethereum or the Bitcoin network or, Polygon or whatever, the rules can never be changed on you. So we know what it costs to do business on this thing, right? We know that we can build on it.
Now, we've talked about that before, because just like me, picking your brain about NFTs and blockchains for 4 hours or 5 hours on the golf course. And sometimes I still honestly leave going I get it, but I don't totally get it. Like it's kind of like the internet was probably in 93. Like you got it, but you're like, it's something like you go on and you get phone numbers or something.
Yeah.
So totally. How do you, this was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we were having that conversation. Yep. So how is it now? People are still not I don't think that much smarter, would you say, about this kind of stuff? How do we fix that learning curve?
Well, the media has definitely given the rap to the casino aspect of speculation, right? Because you have to think that if you see this new technology and you go, oh, okay, so an NFT is actually, it's just data, it's metadata, right? It's giving you access to things, and it could be anything, right? So these tokens, these NFTs, are things that interact on the blockchain. So whatever tokens you have in your wallet basically give you that sort of provenance, or not provenance, but it gives you that right to have access to whatever those tokens say you have access to.
Right. So they're kind of like membership cards that you keep in your wallet that you can use in different places.
Or they could be a deed to your house, or it could be, a membership into a fan club or a AAA, Advantage Airlines miles. It could be anything. Anything you want to be. And what happens is when people see that, they go, oh, that's a great technology. I'm going to buy up a bunch of this stuff and hope that I can flip it, right? For people that actually want to use it.
Right.
That is the era of NFTs that we have been in.
They're not collectibles.
Right.
They're a utility.
They're basically making a bet, like a casino, that these will go up in value at some point, but they don't really care about the product they're buying.
Right.
And so that was the same way with pets.com, and the same way with all these websites and these .coms that happened back in the 90s. And so now what you have for the last 2 years is people like us who have been building out things that we can have like this real proof of concepts of what it is that we're supposed to be, making the world better with, or making the internet better with.
So I was on my walk the other day. I live in Newport. We're in Huntington right now. We're not far apart. And I've been in my brain going, man, I got to get these Apple goggles. I think, is it called goggles? I'm not sure what they look like, goggles, but I'm like, I got to get these. Yeah. And I'm walking by this guy, and he's standing on the beach, like where you would do a surf check, and he's got his goggles on. Yeah. And he is twiddling his fingers at the beach, staring at the ocean. And I had this, oh my God moment. I don't think I can buy those because I can't be that guy. Yeah. Like maybe in my house, in the, in my own home, I'm not, but you can't be walking around with those things on. So I want to get into that. So virtual is coming, right? Like
Augmented reality, virtual reality, or whatever Apple wants to call it now.
Either one. And I do think it's funny that Google offered us regular sunglasses a few years ago, and we turned those down. And now, like, well, fine, you're going to get ski goggles then.
Yeah.
So now we got the ski goggles. But between that and what Facebook is doing, you talked about these virtual concerts going from DVDs or music videos to DVDs and now virtual. And I haven't put one of these goggles on, but I can't imagine it's not going to be a fantastic experience to see your favorite band in great audio with great visuals, like you're on stage or pretty close to the front of the stage. So you said there might be some kickback on that. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you're doing with virtual, and can you talk about like what's coming up on that?
Well, first off, one of the things, I'm reading this great book by Chris Dixon right now, and one thing he was talking about is how we've called it email, but now there's no reason for it's just the mail we do, right? We don't do, there's no, like, we don't send snail mail really anymore, and it's usually just spam in our mailboxes.
Right.
We have e-commerce, but really more online commerce happens. It's commerce at this point. The same thing is sort of happening with this virtual reality sort of situation. Now, there will never be, or maybe not in our lifetime, well, I don't want to say that, but there will always be the person that wants to go to the show and smell the smells and have the beer and be with your friends and have a show. I mean,
that's a great, it's no different than, you want to drive a gasoline engine because you like the smell and the old pickup and
like going out
classic cars.
And you like driving.
That the sensory thing is probably very human and something that's not leaving anytime soon in our lifetime.
But the VR concerts, and I think Apple calls it something else, even though it's VR, because they like to take something that's
Apple
developed, and they like to rename it, pretend they invented it.
Headphones without wires.
Right. Like it's like, anyways, they do it all the time. But pretty soon they'll have their own cryptocurrency. It'll be like Apple money.
I think they already have that.
No word of like, no word of blockchain in it because they invented it. But we'll move back over to the VR. But the VR concerts aren't supposed to replace that, right? An artist comes to your town once every 2 years, once every 3 years.
Right.
This is something that you can literally grab that beer, get in there with your friends, and go have an interactive concert that is not like being in the front row, because you are literally immersed into the production. Like, you can go around and see any angle you want. You are on the stage. You are in the stage.
You're like, you could be the bass drum getting hit in the face if you wanted to, almost.
Meanwhile, there's fire and reapers and lightning and things happening, and you can go through and you can pick out. There's pieces of skull everywhere in our particular show, and you can put the skull together and you get fire hands, and you can do all these. So you're
wait, slow down on that really quick. You just kind of went over that too quick. Not only can I be anywhere on the stage, there's like games I could play almost. Like I go put together, recreate a skull, put it on my hand, and have fire hands.
Yes.
Okay, well.
And you're not even on a stage. We made it so there is no stage. Like, we are in an environment that we've created these environments in Unreal Engine 5, which is the most powerful engine. Can you change the
environment as a user?
Right now, no, we make the environment.
Okay, so they can't go put you in like a poppy field if they wanted to or something.
Use AI and they can.
I guess so.
But I mean, you literally, like, it's uncomfortable for me to watch because I can see all the way down my mouth. I'm like, you're just like right there. Like, I was watching
that's so cool.
Megan Thee Stallion did one, and she's just right there. Like, she's like dancing. You're just like, what the heck?
Feeling uncomfortable.
Like, oh my God. Like, but that's where, and so it's not supposed to recreate. It's actually giving you closer access in a lot of ways.
Okay.
And if you think about how the brain works, right? I mean, these are just inputs that are coming in, and it's giving you some sort of visual or some sort of, it's doing the exact same thing, but it's giving you on like hyper overload. Right. To where you're in these environments that you would never in this world be able to be in. Yeah. But your brain is fooled into thinking that you are there. And which begs the question, are you there? Right.
Yeah. In one of my college classes that I was in, I remember them talking about how the soul is and how, everything that you see is not actually happening outside. Your eyes don't project, your eyes receive.
Yes.
So everything that you and I are taking in, that your sweatshirt's orange or the light's green, is because we both agree that that's a color and we've come to some common understanding. But everything we're doing, like driving down the road, is happening inside of our minds. So you're right. It would just be putting this thing on. I don't want to call it a strap on. Sorry, putting this thing strapped onto your head. It's just you taking in reality in a different way. So maybe that is reality.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
It's questioning everything. And I just don't, that's not scary to me. It's just not. And I think a lot of people, you know, they go through this phase where, you know, the TV's invented or the telephone's invented or
Right.
the Beatles are coming to America and everyone that's of one generation hates it.
Right.
And they're fighting against it.
It's fear. Fear comes first. Fear always comes first.
Right. And then it's video games. And then it's like, those are going to rot your brain. Then we have, you know, and so everything that comes after, it's like this sort of, you know, exponential growth on top of each other, especially with computer. You know, another thing in that book that he brought up, he said, like, listen, in Back to the Future, there's flying cars, but they're still in phone booths.
Right.
And he's like, in the future, right?
So they've got to have present and past are going to be connected, right?
Right. And the way computers work is we didn't invent, you know, flying cars or time machines. We invented Zoom. Right. And so it was, you didn't need to fly. Right. So it all worked in a way that was different than what we imagined it would work at because of the exponential growth of computers. And so I think this whole sort of like this VR concept, there's nothing scary about that. It's just another thing that you can go and do and experience your artist in a completely different way. I think one thing that gets lost is that, you know, you hear a lot of like sort of hyperbole around things that like the blockchain or with technology and this and that. And one thing I hear all the time from fans is that pretty much they think you sold out because you're interested or want to create a better future for artists. They don't see it that way. A lot of people see it as like selling out, trying to do your own sort of iteration, where I would argue that there's nothing more punk rock and rock and roll than these sort of network protocols where you can, you know, have freedom of everyone building on top of each other instead of corporations owning everything. In my mind, if you want to side with corporations over the artists, then you've completely lost the plot. And absolutely. I think that's something that where people just don't quite, they can't, it's been hard for people to put the two and two together. Right. Where it's like, no, we're trying to build a future where there's absolute artistic freedom, absolute, the ability to have a one-on-one connection with the fan without the middleman. And for some reason, everyone's so conditioned to these sort of devices and things that are in place, or these corporations, that they side with the corporation and think that if you're going against them, that you're the one stepping out of line. When the reality is, yeah, it's going to be a fight, but it's a fight that needs to happen. And it's actually the most punk thing you can do.
Hey, thanks for cruising with us today on Locals Only. Big shout out to M Shadows or Matt Sanders for being with us today. That was great conversation. Thanks to everybody on the Straw Hut Media team, our executive producer, Ryan Tillotson, our editor and producer, Parker J. Hicks, and a special thank you to everyone at Fletcher Jones Motor Cars for outfitting our mobile podcast studio inside this Mercedes-Benz all-electric EQE. Join us next time on Locals Only, where you can buckle up and go for a ride in our mobile podcast studio with some of the coolest people in Southern California.